Cedar Creek Ecosystem Science Reserve is a biological field station that has been doing research projects for decades. One of the long-running projects studies a specific ecosystem.
And so we've been working on research to restore oak savannas here since the 1960s with mostly prescribed fire.
But it's become clear that prescribed burning alone is not giving us what we're hoping for in terms of a management strategy.
They have been rotating burn frequencies and study zones, but something is still missing.
Over those 55 years that we've been burning here at Cedar Creek, we haven't seen recruitment of new oak trees. And a lot of the reason we think that's the case is because the grasses, which are the dominant species out here and really important for savannas, they outcompete the oak trees for some of those resources that are needed for growth, like water and nitrogen. And then they also carry the fires, and they create really hot and intense fires.
The oak savanna can have different densities of oaks and other trees on the grasslands. Today, this ecosystem is endangered and considered one of the rarest plant communities on Earth.
Here's one of our oak trees.
The oak savanna is a really special system. It's really aesthetically pleasing for starters. That's a lot of the reason that it's not around anymore. Humans like it. We try and emulate it with our parks and with the way that we build our yards. But it is a really, it's this kind of quintessentially Midwestern ecosystem. It has lots of specialist species, including red-headed woodpeckers that people care about. And as we start losing the ecosystem, we start losing some of those special species as well.
To stop the loss, they're looking back at how things were hundreds of years ago, when the savanna was much more common in the area.
Pre-settlement, there were dynamics that are now missing from the landscape.
We know bison were important players in these savanna systems, but there's been no research or very little research on what happens when we put them back.
So, for the second summer in a row, Cedar Creek has become home to a small herd of bison.
We have 17 two-year-old male bison here at Cedar Creek this year. They come from North Star bison over in Wisconsin, and they're marvelous animals. They're incredible athletes. They can jump 6 feet straight in the air, which is why we have these tall fences. They're very strong, they're very fast. They can run 30 miles an hour if they want to. But despite all that, they spend most of their time walking around eating grass. So they're both this incredible athlete and this kind of gentle giant out here on the savanna landscape.
And they're using these bison in their research. They let the bison roam throughout 200 acres of their reserve, but certain parts of that are blocked off, so they can continue to study how their prescribed burns affect the land that the bison haven't grazed, while also seeing what happens when they do graze.
Bison could be a really important tool for helping restore prairies and savannas in Minnesota and across a lot of the Midwest. And so we don't know exactly what that looks like. At what density should they be here? How much area do you need for them to graze? What are all the other impacts besides oak trees that you might see? And so hopefully with this project, we'll be able to inform people and help other nonprofits or government agencies around Minnesota and the Midwest that want to potentially introduce bison as a management tool.
Even though the project is young, they're beginning to see results.
We've learned that bison have a huge impact on these systems.
One reason for that, they think, is that the prescribed burns work through the savanna at a lower temperature once a lot of the grass is gone, giving the oaks a better chance of survival.
When we looked at the survival rates of oak trees, is that basically anywhere that fires didn't burn because the bison grazed, we saw 80% survival of those oak trees.
They changed the landscape so that fire behaves very differently, and we're starting to see some anecdotal impacts on bird communities as well, shifting numbers of different species. It's very early, it's too early to say anything definitively, but we are seeing an impact. I'm really excited about the opportunities for the public to come see this landscape, the herd, the research. And we have open hours on Saturdays from 10 to 2 for members of the general public to come and see this ecosystem, see these animals, see the dynamics that existed in our state before we removed them.